I am Gloria from Commercial Labs, heading strategy and operations. This is one of the most panel I'm looking forward to really hear. I can wait to share with you these panelists and their amazing work. So we have Diane. He's the lead architect for MetaMask Snaps, and he has been super execution and strategy mode for like building a reputation system for Snaps permissionless distribution. And we have Ryan, who's the head of DevRel at Base. And Base has been working with like attestation of reputations and also like wallet use case for using reputation to create better user experiences. And we have Jonas, who's from OP Foundation, and Optimism has been one of the most pioneering ecosystem for like utilizing reputation and identity for better governance processes. And then we have Sahil, who's the founder and CEO of Commercial Labs. But I will still let each one of the panelists to introduce themselves and also like their work in the space of reputation and what does this word mean, right? Because we have been talking about this morning, and people still have like different concepts of what does reputation mean. So what does reputation mean in your own work and why it is important? That's my first question. Take it from there.
Hello everyone. So I'm a software architect in MetaMask, and I'm working on Snaps permissionless distribution. So you might have heard about Snaps. So it's the ability to extend MetaMask wallet permissionlessly. So yeah, MetaMask is a common good, and we aim at making it permissionless, so to foster permissionless innovation. So Snaps can have unexpected behavior, and that's why now, today, so it's the first part of our journey to a permissionless innovation strategy, but we are reviewing each snap before accepting them in MetaMask. But yeah, in our journey to make it permissionless, we aim at having it totally free from any intermediaries, and that's where reputation comes in place. So we introduce some key capabilities in order to manage all this trust and reputation in MetaMask Snap ecosystem. And reputation is quite key, and we used to have in our decentralized society more financial use case. But now we are introducing social relationship of trust, and it's really valuable in at-scale communities, at-scale network, and yeah, we are going to leverage that, and I will be happy to deep dive this topic further.
Hi everyone, Ryan Nitz, I'm the head of Base DevRel. So for those who don't know, Base is a public permissionless L2. It's built on the OP stack. It's the founding member of the superchain. And one of the things that we are looking at is how do we bring the next million developers on chain? How do we bring the next billion users on chain? And some of the roadblocks that we see in the way of getting to that are cheap block space. We see wallet technology that's a bit outdated, a bit difficult to use, not for us, but for the majority of the masses. And we also see that identity is also a key blocker in the mass adoption of on-chain usage. And so one of the key kind of components of identity on-chain is the concept of credit. And right now, you're unable to get any sort of credit on-chain. You can do over-collateralized loans and things of that nature, but there's really kind of no mechanism, and that's for standard credit, and that's one of the blockers for mass adoption and bringing a lot more people on-chain and opening up the economic system to all. And so this is one of the key components that we're looking at. And in parallel, I'll dive deeper into this. Coinbase has actually released an attestation service on Base, which enables anyone who has a Coinbase account to log in, connect their wallet, and then we'll attest on chain that the user's been KYC'd, and we'll attest their jurisdiction of where they're at. So we released this on the, well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me pass it on.
That's great, Ryan. So I think, first of all, I feel proud about two things today. One is that we have an entire session which is based on entire day for reputation. So RepConnect, thanks Ceramic for putting it together. I think it's about time we kind of treat identity and reputation as a key piece in the stack that we all need to work towards. And the second thing I'm proud about is, if you ask any of my family and friends in the last 1.5 years, all of them will have a definition for reputation, because reputation and trust have been my most used words for the last 1.5 years. And I think obsessed about solving these problems. But to Gloria's question, I think reputation I view as something which we need every day to make decisions, right? To feel safely connecting with, transacting with, engaging with different parties that we meet every day, whether which event to attend to, which DAO to join, which application to use on Base, or which person to give a grant to. So I think I see reputation as a very human thinking muscle, like, hey, do I trust this thing, right? And of course, that's what makes it very complex and abstract. But hopefully we are building all these tools to make it easy for people to engage and find trustworthy relationships on chain, right? Whether it's with a community member or an application or a wallet built by someone that you don't know, that no one is going to gatekeep for you, right? So that's how I think about reputation.
I'm Jonas. I'm leading this program called Retroactive Public Goods Funding at the Optimism Foundation. If you haven't heard of this, the core idea here is this is how we fund the public goods that are important to optimism. And we do this by rewarding things based on how impactful they've been in the past, rather than how impactful they might be in the future. And so this is happening. We're currently running the 3rd round of RetroPGF with over 600 projects, all of which you know and love, everything from core Ethereum infrastructure with the Protocol Guild and client teams to developer tooling, education, etc. Really at the heart of RetroPGF is reputation signals and trust networks. So one part of this is we're spinning up this new governing body, which is called the Citizens House, where we want to give core Optimism users governance rights, and especially the right to allocate RetroPGF among projects. And we want to do this in a one-person, one-vote system. And so to pull this off, we need a bunch of good reputation signals to identify the core users of Optimism. And on the other side, we want to reward public goods based on how useful they've been to Optimism users. So we need to gather a bunch of reputation signals on who has used what product and how useful have they found this public good. And so I think this is a really nice, in all that we're doing at Optimism, this is a really nice way to bootstrap all the reputation signals we're seeing across the superchain.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The second question, let's dive one step deeper. We've been talking about the promise of what reputation can bring to different ecosystems. And I think we have all this consensus in this room that is really important. But in your execution, in your experiments, what have been some of the challenges you find most critical that's not necessarily talked about a lot in the ecosystem? So we'll not dive into solutions yet. So we'll talk about challenges first.
Okay. So challenges, no solutions. So a first challenge we have now is to build the trust graph. So we are going to build a trust graph in order to compute trust scores regarding snaps, so the extension in MetaMask, but also regarding people, the developers, the reviewers, auditors, and so on. And to build this, you need to find which existing data could be leveraged. So you have proof of humanity, proof of attendance, proof of contribution. You have owned assets and so on. And on top of that, we need new data, new signals that need to be bring up somehow in the ecosystem. So we need to see clearly what is our objective. So yeah, I won't go into the solution, but yeah, what do we want to resolve in order to find the good signals to use in order to have the good trust score that correspond to our challenge. So we need to design our new data signal, so there is a need for defining the data structure regarding the right information we need. And then with all this data, so for example, in our case, we need audits to audit snaps in a permissionless way. We need an identifier for snaps. You need reviews to give some feedbacks regarding snaps and so on. So all these data points needs to be augmented with also trusted information regarding peers. Because there is the implicit trust that you can find in social network, for example. But you have also explicit trust because people need to know the implication of their action to issue trust signals and so on. So yeah, this is one challenge. On top of that, I will add to configure the trust computer because we will have a lot of different attackers. We are in a decentralized network, so you will have Sybils attack, sleeper agent attack, and today we are working with MetaMask security team to identify, and with Karma Free Labs, to identify every kind of attack that could occur in our system. So we need to define rules in order to score and to avoid gamification of the protocol in order to trick it. And yeah, two more challenges quickly. So another challenge is to find the best solution in order to store all this data, all these signals. So it depends of the requirements regarding this data. You have scalability requirements because we might have a lot of volume, so having strong consensus with blockchains might not be relevant for some elements, but sometimes you need strong consensus, so you might need an attestation registry like Verax and so on. So yes, what is a good balance in terms of solution? And the last one, the last challenge, that as a software architect, I'm less involved in it, but I think it's maybe the biggest, it's a user experience. Because when you compute a trust score, yeah, okay, sorry. Because when you have a trust score that is computed, you have a number that is giving without any context. So we need to contextualize it, to provide the right wording in order to give the right insight to the end user. But because at the end, the insight that we want to provide to the end user is helping him or her to take informed decision regarding the risk they are willing to take. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.
So I heard that basically utilizing data correctly to reflect reputation and build towards like permission safety, which is withstanding all kinds of attacks, storing that data safely in a decentralized way, and also creating the user experience that's not interrupted by this permissionless innovation, right? Which is pretty novel. Nobody has done it ever. So great, thank you, Diane. And Ryan?
I promise I won't have as many challenges. I mean, I do personally, but I won't share them all today. So the challenges with Base that we're looking at related to identity and reputation, one of the biggest ones that we started off with is like every new project, we launch a Discord server, and then instantly we had 300,000 people on the Discord server, and they're all like one token, and so they're all like spamming us and 20 interactions and doing all this stuff. And so that was one of the immediate challenges, and we've been sifting through that, trying to identify like who's actually in the community, who's actually building. And we released some challenges that required people to deploy smart contracts, things of that nature. But those aren't only the contributors, so we think that there's actually a larger ecosystem out there, and so trying to sift through that is one of our challenges. Another challenge is identifying who's an actual developer on Base, and that's something that's really challenging because a lot of people may deploy through CI/CD, and so like their smart contract deployment on mainnet is actually done through a single wallet address. So like a large organization may look like one developer, and so that's another challenge that we're dealing with. And then lastly, and this is more not just for Base, but for all L2s and all the entire crypto ecosystem, and this is something I'm sure will be a common theme, is how do we reduce friction on chain? There are certain dApps, there are certain applications that do require KYC, and there are certain dApps that require limited jurisdiction and who can actually access that. These are not my favorite constructs, but these are a reality around the world, mostly due to like, I don't know, weird regulation in certain countries like the United States. And so like, how do you reduce that friction so that somebody doesn't have to go through and identify themselves de-anonymized necessarily, but still gain access to this financial product or this product with value? So I'll pass it on there.
So at Karma 3, we're building a reputation protocol, and really at an infrastructure level, what we're really doing is making sense of all these trust signals that we're talking about through various social graph algorithms like eigentrust. So for us, I think one of the lessons we learned in the last 1 year is that in crypto, most of the primitives to solve reputation are nearly there. All the way from where do you find data? You can now get Web2 data to Web3. Coinbase attestations is actually a great example of that. Having on-chain or off-chain attestation services, verifiable credentials, having a data storage layer or a data streaming layer to store this data. And then computing using verifiable compute. You also want to make sure that if you're using an algorithm, it's verifiable. Otherwise, what's the point? We're going back to Web2 opaque systems altogether, right? So most of these actually primitive problems are being solved. Another thing that we thought would be a big issue, but it's actually a feature, not a bug, is that reputation is context specific. So each use case, there's no one global score you can create for a user. But for every application context, you might have different categories of reputation scores, right? Which is fine, we have to work with that because that's how humans work, right? My Uber rating is different from my Yelp rating is different from my Dasher rating. Sorry, these are all American connotations. But the point is, I think the key challenge now that I'm coming to, that we realized, is getting the user experience and getting the usability right with your signals and your reputation compute is a very tough problem to solve. And unless we work together to solve it, it's very difficult. Because imagine a user is using an app, but you're making them go to a different user experience or interface to go and give attestations or issue attestations or read reviews. Users are not used to that anymore. In Web 2, people want to see utility and search and discovery and the utility of that reputation score in the same place where they're interacting day to day. So how do you solve that challenge from a UX product design point of view is something we have to talk more about and we have to actively work together on.
Lots of challenges. I don't think I have much to add. I think an interesting part is getting from 0 to 1 in these ecosystems and bootstrapping the reputation layer. What's really nice here across the superchain, we use shared infrastructure, and so we can leverage all the signals that different network providers and actors on these networks create. A great example of this is we saw the Base team constantly having to give out testnet tokens on Twitter. So we solved this via the superchain faucet, which takes in a bunch of reputation signals from different sources, such as WorldCoin, EAS attestations, etc. But then the challenge I'm currently focused on is for essentially impact signals. How useful has something been? How do we integrate this so it becomes like part of the base activity of interacting with a product or service and not a separate activity, right? We want products and projects to focus on building the greatest products that they can. We don't want them to focus on reaching out to 100 users and getting them to give them reviews kind of vibe. And so I think just integrating reputation natively and gathering these signals as users go along is the kind of big area we're going to explore over the next 6 months.
Awesome. Before we go into the solution end, I have maybe one more question to tap into what you just said. how do we think about balancing like top-down deciding which signals to use to basically generate reputation, and some sort of like a bottom-up emergence approach in your use case, and like what's the right thinking model that we might be able to help with this answering this question? Anybody?
I think starting bottom up from the beginning is pretty hard because there's like a missing contextual model of what we're doing here. This is what we found in a lot of experiments. Like sometimes you try to be really open and nice and you're like, we don't want to define anything. We want to leave it to the community and to like the citizens to decide this. And then you just end up in a state of total chaos. And so I think the way to approach this is we want to set some good examples of what you can do, and then let the community go wild. I think giving the right kind of frameworks in the beginning is really important. I think we've seen this like play out over and over again, how important like early products have been in shaping how we understand certain concepts. So I would go for people, like it's better if people build something great and are like more opinionated, and then we go from there than like just letting it go into complete chaos.
So I just want to piggyback on that point because I completely agree, and I think one of the controversial opinions in crypto is building products top down. But I actually feel when you have to bootstrap and get something right, shape the early days of a community, you have to have a heavy-handed product inside approach with the absolute mission that over a period of time, you will open up the product surface to the community and let bottom up, create space for more bottom up proposals on features or whatever that use case is. But otherwise, it just becomes a no man's land of a lot of, which is great for experimentation. But I think we're all at that level where we're thinking, how do we go from, let's say, where we are to like 10xing our users on our apps? Not billion users yet, but just 10x our users. And to do that, we have to be like thoughtful about this. And I think we should also not fear learning from how Web2 did user acquisition or what worked, because user mindset of how they act with apps or on their phone, we need to not like look away and say, hey, this is crypto, you need to learn everything this way. So I think there's a little bit of balance that we need to achieve there.
I guess the base core community of developers isn't massive enough yet, so we're kind of taking the bottoms-up approach right now. So we're actually actively, we'll talk to anyone, we'll meet with anyone, and so we're just trying to person by person, developer by developer, build that community. So we'll come back next year and see what problems we have.
Yeah, see, we at the beginning we want to provide a pre-trust graph, for example, that we will provide top-down in order to kick off with something that makes sense with the entities that we trust as MetaMask. But we want the end user to be totally free to add or remove any trust circles, so any trust graph. So the idea is that we will have this trust graph preset, and then the end user can choose whatever she or he wants. And on top of that, we want to open up our protocol by having any kind of trust computer being able to be used in order to compute the trust score, as well as enabling the end user to choose the trust level they are willing to give to the ecosystem. So for example, an end user, so yeah, basically in MetaMask, the end user will be able to choose the trust level. So maybe the trust level can be, I trust my community, okay. I trust MetaMask community, preset trust graph. And maybe we can put some configuration to be able to leverage other algorithms that will be built by someone else of the community. So then we want like MetaMask end user to be totally free to add any kind of engine. one will be built by MetaMask, but other can be built by the community. A good example is the Snaps directory, for example. That is a kind of app store for MetaMask, Snaps, that is built. So the one we know is built by MetaMask, but we have others that are built by the community. So for example, they were a grant for the community to build their own Snap directory. And they can rely on anything they want, and the community will be choosing, and it will be more bottom-up.
Great, thank you so much. And I think just to echo some of your answers, I think in real world, right, when a community starts to shape, it's basically a bunch of people, they have like common values and cultures and knowing like what exactly is the model behavior, the desired behavior for a bunch of people, then sort of like propagate that through like human connections, right? And that sort of like top-down approach is basically bootstrapping in the very beginning for any community reputation. And then you want to sustain that when it's like big enough, becomes an organic mechanism within the community. And I think we're not necessarily reinventing so much, we're actually capturing the real dynamic in human societies in Web3, right? We're not denying the real dynamics of human societies in Web3. Great, so finally we come to the solution land. What kind of like specific innovations you have seen or you have been working on? It could be just an experiment right now, but what exactly can be some examples or innovations you've seen can be helpful addressing these challenges?
Yeah, so I forgot. I keep forgetting to shout out to Jonas and the Retro PGF. It's such an amazing initiative. And just a reminder, any project that's deployed on the superchain is also eligible for those projects, including Base. I do have a bag of Sepolia and Gurley, so if anybody needs any, let me know on Base. But in terms of solutions, so Base is obviously a public permissionless blockchain and will remain so. We do see certain applications moving more to permissionless, and we see that happening at the user tier, at the user space level, at the application level, via smart contracts, and so wherever that needs to occur. And so in order to help solve that, Coinbase released the Coinbase attestation service on Base. And so, as I mentioned, that provides the ability to test that you've been KYC'd. It provides the jurisdiction that you're available. And we're researching things like accredited investors, and we're looking at the entity equivalent so that both institutions as well as users can actually come on chain and operate and interact with these permissioned apps. We built this on the Ethereum attestation service, which is a public goods open source project. It's really great. We really like the team. We were looking for composable open source projects that people can build on. And so that's actually currently in an MVP stage. Moving forward in the future, we will have certain off-chain and on-chain solutions that will enable, if the user grants permission, to de-anonymize with the application through off-chain interaction. But the nice part also is it's revocable, so if the user decides that they no longer want this attestation associated with their wallet, they can do so. And Coinbase actually has the right to revoke the attestation as well if the user fails to do KYC refresh or something to that effect. And so it provides a cornerstone that people can build on top of for certain permissioned environments. So that's kind of like the solution that we've built and where Coinbase is built and where it's headed. And we're excited that it was released on Base.
So there's two things that I think I can share to solve some of the pain points. One is that we're trying to already use all the existing on-chain data and create a social graph, an on-chain graph almost, based on your different transactions, identities, badges, attestations, and make it used in a contextualized way for some of the use cases that need reputation. So I think that's one problem we're trying to solve. To even think about bootstrapping, how do we get started, right? And then in the future, we know that people are going to start issuing their own signals, their own, using these apps, and that will create further more reputation signals. But we already have a lot of data on chain, so why not use that? So that's one of the things that we're trying to use. And the second is what I mentioned about user experience. We have been working with IDEO to really think about a human-centered design approach. So we're working with some of our design partners in thinking what is the best UI UX? What is the best data schema for attestations? For solving reputation in that use case. I think that is, we're an infrastructure, we're going to be a protocol, but in the beginning, I think to create value of what we're building with the social graph, verifiable compute layer, we need to work closely with partners and think through how these tools will be used by end users. So that's kind of where we're spending more time as well in supporting our partners.
Yes, definitely echoing what you're saying in like, we want to reuse the reputation that is already here and bring it on chain. So this is what we've been doing over the past like half year. We have a lot of great reputation signals from all the interactions within the Optimism DAO that we've brought on chain via the Ethereum attestation service. We have a lot of great partners that are helping to make this happen, like WorldCoin, like Base, Zora, and we're getting to build products that take all these reputation signals in and build like a seamless experience around this. And then I think what we're really excited about for the future is starting to go into an area where we actively encourage projects to gather reputation, and we're able to set incentives around this, right? So we're playing a collaborative game where we're seeing that anybody that adds to the reputation layer of the superchain should get rewarded by RetroPGF. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic to incentivize bootstrapping this reputation layer. And I feel like that's going to be very, very exciting. And I think we're like in good company with EIS and WorldCoin and Base. So I'm really curious what kinds of experiments will come along there.
Awesome. I think we have. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's maybe we don't have any more time. It's okay.
No, I talked with you too much, so
Yeah,
I
okay.
thought you already shared. No, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so you were saying that, yeah, we inspired...
Specific innovations and experiments you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So you say that we are inspired by the real life social dynamics. And I think this is innovative because actually in our society, a lot of great innovations are inspired by the nature, for example. And yeah, humans are part of the nature. And I think that leveraging all the way we are socially working is really great and innovative to build this kind of mechanism. So yeah, this is quite impressive to be able to add this to decentralized networks, to decentralized ecosystem. Another thing that is quite innovative, I think, and that solves the problem is having algorithms like Eigentrust. I think it's existing for a while, but in this context, in my opinion, it's quite new to be used. And having the Karma Free Labs, for example, augmenting it in order to create a protocol that might be decentralized in the future and so on, bring a lot of value. And I will add on top of that Ceramic Network that is tackling another problem that blockchain do with double spending problem, with more scalable data infrastructure, but leveraging the properties, the key properties of blockchain, like the provability, like the ordering, censorship resistance, and so on. So yeah, I'm really exciting to build up this entire solution and see other solutions that will appear with all these protocols that are coming up and so on.
Great, thank you so much. And just to elaborate a bit on what you mentioned about Eigentrust, I think the algo itself needs to define like a C-trust peers, which is basically reflecting how Bootstrap works with like a top-down approach. But it also needs to define like a local trust vector, which is kind of like defining what exactly is going to be the right signal factor in. But all this needs to happen at the right interface to kind of collect this whole thing organically. Even users don't even feel like they're attesting to a reputation, but they're actually doing this. So then it captures the user intent really correctly. Then you can somehow make sense of that data in a graph network. So I think that's something quite interesting. Maybe we'll dive deeper after when Sahil gives his presentation. But I want to open up the question maybe for one more question. We still have a minute? Okay.
Does anyone have a question? Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of attestations, but how are you guys thinking about negative reputation? Like, they act like not something like I want to ban them, but I'd like you to like be careful or whatever. In your Uber, it's like, all right, 3 out of 5. How are you guys thinking about negative attestations?
In our use case, we're thinking about introducing distrust credential also. Yeah, it can be challenged because you can, as an honest person, receive a distrust attestation, and you don't want that. But we will score everything. So maybe you will have like thousands of distrust attestation, but it doesn't matter because those that would issue this attestation or credential won't be scored well because maybe they are Sybil attacker cluster or maybe they are just haters. So yeah, this is how we handle this question.
The Coinbase attestation service doesn't really have this factored in right now. It's a really binary signal. It can be revoked, as I mentioned, though. So if you're in an AML list or something like that, then you could actually lose the attestation could be revoked. And so the EAS is kind of a unique system where it does have revocable as well as permanent attestations. We specifically chose revocable just to give the freedom to the user as well as the freedom to, in case they do something nefarious.
So that's a great question, first of all, thanks, because that captures real human behavior day to day, right? So I think we've realized at Karma 3 while building kind of this compute layer, there's 2 dimensions to thinking about distrust, spam, Sybil. One is at a global level, hey, which are spammers, which are Sybil attackers, or these are people we don't trust. There could be a threshold of scores, for example, right? People lowest ranked in the list who not a lot of people in the entire network trust. So that's one way to kind of weed them out. Another is a local version of distrust. Let's say if I'm connected with Diane on Twitter, I follow him on Twitter, and Diane's interacting with a smart contract and says, hey, I found a bug, please don't mint an NFT here. I see it on Twitter, I trust Diane because I follow him on Twitter, and now that's a distrust signal for a new dApp or a smart contract for me. So if people who are in your graph are distrusting something, then any of the systems should be able to surface that information up. Because we all depend on distrust signals from our connected peers in some way, right? If you just break it down into graph theory and math. So that's one way of tackling this, where you introduce distrust, and if someone you trust says something bad or distrust someone, then that should surface up.
I don't think I have anything to add to that. That was like perfect answer.
Yeah.
Like, would definitely like add to this. Of course, we have distrust if we have trust.
And sometimes you have direct distrust signals, but sometimes it's indirect. For example, we will provide audits, permissionless audits, and they will be able to say, okay, this snaps has some findings, critical findings. So indirectly, the issuer of the developer of the snap will have a less good reputation, so distrusted somehow.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think this is such a new design space that we're venturing into. A lot more communication, exchange, and learnings will be really essential for us to actually get faster to our goals, right? And thank you so much, everyone. And please give a round of applause to our panelists for their insights. Okay.